That hole in your porch railing, the one the size of your pinky finger, perfectly round like someone took a drill to it, that is not damage from age. That is a tenant. And she is already boring deeper while you stand there looking at it. Here is the part nobody at the hardware store will tell you. You can stop her this weekend for about $1 with something already sitting in your kitchen or your barn right now. Not a $40 spray, not a pest. Man at $150 a visit, $1, maybe less. My people have done it this way for generations, long before anybody thought to put it in a can and sell it back to you. I grew up plain in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and on our farm, wood was everything. The barn, the fences, the wagon, the porch my grandfather built with his own 2 hands before my father was born. We did not throw wood away and buy new. We protected what we had. Because what you have is what the good Lord gave you to steward, and you do not waste it. So when these bees came for our wood, we did not panic. We did not drive to town. We already knew what to do. And by the end of this, you will too. Before I go further, do me one small kindness. Drop a comment and tell me which state you are watching from. Just the state. I want to see how far north these bees have crept, because they are not where they used to be, and the map is changing faster than most folks realize. Stay with me. Because around the middle of this, I am going to show you the exact trick my grandfather used to make a bee that already drilled into your wood pack up and never come back. Costs less than a cup of coffee, and it works because of something the bee cannot help but do. A weakness built right into her. But first you need to understand what you are really dealing with, because most people get this completely wrong, and getting it wrong is what costs them the whole board. Let me tell you what is actually happening inside that wood. That round hole on the surface, that is only the front door. It goes in about 1 inch, then it makes a sharp turn, usually a right angle, and runs with the grain of the wood, and it keeps going. A fresh tunnel might be 6 inches long, but here's the thing nobody mentions. She comes back. A carpenter bee does not drill one hole and move on like a drifter. She remembers. She and her daughters return to the same wood year after year, and they do not start fresh. They take the old tunnel and they make it longer. They branch it, they add rooms. Researchers at Penn State looked at galleries that had been used and reused over many seasons, and some of those tunnel systems ran up to 10 feet through a single beam. 10 feet inside a board you walk past every single day and think is solid. That is the cost of not knowing. That is the quiet part. You see one little hole in May. You shrug. You tell yourself it is just one bee. And while you are sleeping, that one bee is hollowing out the bone of your house 1 inch at a time. A female can dig about 1 inch of fresh tunnel in a week. Slow, patient, the kind of damage you do not see until the railing gives under your hand. And it gets worse because the bees are not the only ones who find that tunnel. Have you noticed bigger holes near the round ones, ragged ones, torn like something clawed the wood open? That is the woodpecker. Because inside those tunnels, the bee lays her young, fat little grubs packed in one behind the other, each in its own little room with a ball of pollen, and the woodpecker can hear them. He hammers the board apart to eat them. So now you have 2 problems. The bee made the hole, the bird made it a crater, and I have watched a woodpecker turn a tidy little half-inch hole into a foot-long gash in a barn board in a single morning. One bird, one morning. This is what the big box store is counting on. They want you to wait. They want you scared and confused in that aisle, staring at a wall of cans, each one promising something different, each one $8, $12, $18. They have no reason to tell you the simple thing. There is no money in the simple thing. And the simple thing is this: the bee that is hurting your wood is almost never the one you are swatting at. Let me explain, because this changes everything about how you fight her. When you walk out to your porch and a big bee comes right at your face, hovering, darting, dive bombing you, aggressive as anything, your whole body says danger, you wave your arms, you run inside, you feel attacked, that bee cannot hurt you. Not even a little. That is the male. And the male has no stinger. None. He is all show. His entire job is to guard the territory around the nest and chase off anything that comes near, including you, including other bees, including a leaf that blew by. He is a bluff with wings. You could let him land on your hand and he could do nothing but sit there. The one doing the damage never bothers you at all. That is the female. She is quiet. She is busy. She is around the back of the board, head down, drilling, while her mate puts on a show out front to keep your eyes in the wrong place. My grandfather used to laugh about it. He said the loud one is the decoy and the quiet one is the thief. You chase the decoy, the thief keeps working, so the first thing you do is stop wasting your energy on the wrong bee. Now, why your wood? Why does she pick your porch and not the oak tree 20 feet away? This matters because once you understand what draws her, you can make your wood the last place she wants to be. She wants soft wood, unfinished wood, bare weathered, untreated wood that her jaws can work easily. Pine, cedar, redwood, cypress, fir, the very woods we love to build porches and decks and railings and barn trim out of. She is not chewing it for food, mind you. She does not eat the wood like a termite. She just digs. She spits the sawdust out the front, and you will see it, little piles of fresh, coarse, pale dust on the ground right below the hole, like someone was doing carpentry. That sawdust under the hole is the freshest sign you have. If it is there, she is working right now this week. If the hole is dark and stained and there is no fresh dust, that tunnel may be from a past year, but do not relax, because that is exactly the one she will come back and extend. And here is the detail. The can in the store will never put on the label. She is drawn to the smell of old tunnels. The bees leave their scent in the wood, in the leftover sawdust packed in the corners, a chemical marker that says to the next bee, and to her own daughters, this is a good spot, others nested here, dig in. She is not choosing your porch at random. She is reading a message left behind, and as long as that message is in the wood, you will keep getting tenants no matter how many you swat. Hold that thought. The scent, remember it. Because the whole secret I promised you at the start turns on it. And most people never figure it out. So they fight the same bees in the same boards every spring for 20 years and never understand why they keep coming back. So let us start fixing it. And the first fix costs you almost nothing. You want to make your wood smell wrong and feel wrong to her. There are two cheap things in your house that do this, and the bee will not argue with either one. The first is plain almond oil. Real almond extract, the little brown bottle in your baking cupboard, or almond oil if you have it. Carpenter bees cannot stand it. Something in that almond scent jams up the way they read a surface, and they will not settle on wood that carries it. The English are only now selling fancy citrus and almond sprays in big bottles for $15, $20, calling it a new natural solution. My grandmother kept almond extract in the pantry for cakes, and my grandfather would dab it around the rafters of the spring house every year, and he never paid a soul for the idea. The second is even cheaper. Citrus, the oil in an orange peel, the stuff called D-limonene, is poison to a lot of insects and a hard no to a carpenter bee. You can buy pure citrus oil, cheap, or in a pinch you can steep orange and lemon peels in water and wipe it on. The bees read citrus as wrong, as danger, and they move along. Here is how you use it exactly, because the how is where folks go wrong. In the early spring, before the bees are flying hard, you take your almond or your citrus and you treat the wood they have liked before. The undersides of railings, the bottom edges of deck boards, fascia, the trim under the eaves, any place that faces down or sits in the shade, because she loves the protected, shadowed faces of the wood, not the sunny ones. You wipe it on. You can mix the oil with a little water in a spray bottle and mist those areas every couple of weeks through the spring. It does not last forever. The sun and rain take it off. So you reapply. That is the only catch. It is cheap, so reapplying is no burden. Now, this keeps new bees from choosing your wood, but does not deal with the bee already in there. The female down the tunnel, laying her young. For her, we need something different. And this is the part I promised you in the beginning. This is my grandfather's trick. And that is a good thing to know, because everything I have ever learned about protecting what you have built from bees to soil to the barn itself came from the same plain source, people who kept the knowledge instead of buying it back. That knowledge is what I put into the Garden Blueprint and the Harvest Blueprint, two guides covering old-fashioned pest cures, Amish soil secrets, and storage methods that cost pennies and last a lifetime. If you want both, plus everything in between, the Complete Garden Field Edition brings it all together in one place. and you can find the link in the description. People have told me it reads like sitting down with a neighbor who has never steered them wrong. Now, back to the bee inside your wood and the exact order that gets her out for good. Stay right with me, because this is the piece almost nobody does correctly, and it is the difference between a bee that leaves and a bee that breeds you a dozen more. You do not seal the hole first. Write that on your hand. Do not seal it first. I know every instinct tells you to grab the caulk and plug that hole the minute you see it. It feels like you are winning. You are not. If you plug a tunnel with a live female and her young inside, you trap them, yes, but you also trap the food and the warmth, and worse, you have done nothing about the scent that calls the next generation. And often the young simply chew their way out a new hole right beside the old one in the spring, and now you have two holes, and you taught them nothing. Here is the order that actually works. First, you treat inside the tunnel. You need to get something into that hole that the bee will carry through the whole gallery herself. My grandfather used a fine dust. The plain people have used boric powder and lime, and even plain wood ash worked into the right places for longer than anybody's been writing it down. Today, the cheapest, most reliable thing you can buy is plain boric acid powder. A small puffer bottle of it costs a couple of dollars and lasts you years. Boric acid is not a poison that drops a bee on contact like the harsh sprays. It is quieter and smarter than that. It is a fine powder, and when the bee walks through it, it sticks to her legs and her body, all those tiny hairs, and a bee grooms. She cannot help it. She cleans herself, and she carries that dust deep into the tunnel, onto the walls, onto her young. It works on the inside of the insect, on her gut, and she does not even know to avoid it because there is no sharp smell, no sting of fumes. She tracks it everywhere. It is the patience of it that gets her. The same patience she used on your wood turned back on her. You puff that boric acid right up into the hole. Get the puffer tip into the opening and give it a few good pumps so the dust coats the inside of the tunnel where you cannot see. Do this in the evening, near dusk, when she's more likely to be home and the males are not flying at your face. You will want to do it a second time a few days later to be sure. Now you wait. Give it a few days. A week is better. Let her track that dust through every room of that gallery. Let it reach the young. Then, and only then, you seal. And here is where the scent comes back, the thing I told you to remember. Before you plug that hole, you want to kill the smell that says, "Come dig here." So you take a little of your citrus oil or your almond, and you work it into the hole too. Now the tunnel is treated, the scent marker is fouled, and you are ready to close it for good. To seal, you do not just smear caulk over the opening. A bee chews through caulk and putty like it is nothing. You stuff the hole first. Steel wool, the fine kind, packed in tight, or a piece of copper mesh, or even a wooden dowel tapped in with a little wood glue. Something her jaws cannot get through. Steel wool is the cheap answer, and it is what I reach for. Pack it deep and firm. Then you cap it with caulk or wood filler over the top, smooth it off, and once it dries, you can paint over it, and you will never know it was there. That order: treat, wait, foul the scent, pack, seal. Do it in that order, and the bee inside is gone, the young are gone, the welcome sign is erased, and the door is shut with something her teeth cannot beat. Do it in the wrong order, plug first, and walk away, and you will be back next May doing it again. Now, I can already hear some of you. You are saying, that is fine for one hole, but my porch has been here 40 years. My deck has a dozen holes. My barn trim is a sieve. This is too far gone for little tricks. I hear you. And I want to talk to you especially because this is exactly the person the pest companies love most. The one who thinks it is hopeless, so they hand over the whole job and the whole checkbook. It is not hopeless. An old, established place with years of bee history is not a lost cause. It just needs a weekend and a system, and I am going to give you the system right now, the one we used on a barn that had been standing since before my grandfather was a boy, wood that had fed bees for generations. Start on a cool morning, early, before the bees warm up and start flying. Cold bees or slow bees. Take a walk all the way around your house and your outbuildings with a notepad, and you mark every hole you find. Look up under the eaves. Look at the underside of every railing and every step. Look at the top edges of fence boards and the back of the deck where it faces the yard. Tilt your head and look at the bottom faces of things because that shaded underside is where she hides. Mark them all. You will likely find more than you thought. That is good. Knowing is half the battle. Now sort them with your eyes. The holes with fresh pale sawdust under them are active this season. The dark, weathered, empty-looking holes are old, but remember, those are the ones carrying the scent that brings new bees. Both get treated, neither gets ignored. You go down the list with your boric acid puffer, working in the evening, and you treat every active hole, fresh sawdust or not. Puff each one. Then over the next week, you let the bees do your work for you, tracking that dust through all those old galleries. And during that same week, in the daytime, you take your almond and citrus mix in a spray bottle and you treat all the bare wood faces, the undersides, the favorite spots to turn away anything new flying in looking for a home. After that week, you go back around with your steel wool and your caulk, and this time you close every hole, old and new, packing each one tight and capping it. Foul the scent first with a dab of citrus on each. By the time you are done, you have not just killed the bees in the wood. You have erased the map that told them to come. That is the difference between treating a symptom and ending the cycle. And here is the one weekend job that protects you for years, the thing my people understood about wood that the store will never push, because there is no profit in telling you to do something once instead of buying a can every spring. Paint, or really any solid finish. A carpenter bee wants bare, soft, untreated wood. She has a much harder time with a hard painted surface. The paint clogs her reed of the wood and gives her jaws nothing easy to start on. Researchers who study this will tell you plainly that painted wood gets attacked far less than bare wood, and a thick coat of paint is the single best long-term defense there is. Stain helps some, but a solid coat of paint helps most. So that old fascia board, that weathered railing, the rough trim under the eaves, give it a good coat. It is a weekend with a brush, and it does more to keep bees out for the next 10 years than any spray you will buy 10 times over. If you cannot paint it, if you want to keep that natural cedar look, then your almond and citrus routine in the spring is your friend, and you simply commit to the reapplying. Cheap, but you have to keep at it. There is one more thing for the established place, and I learned this one the hard way, watching the birds. If a woodpecker has already found your bee tunnels and torn the wood open, you have a window of time to act, because that bird will keep coming back as long as there are grubs to eat. Treat those tunnels with your boric acid fast, take the food source away, and the bird loses interest and moves on. Leave the grubs in there, and you are running a free buffet, and the bird will do more damage in a week than the bees did in a season. I have seen a barn board that took one bee a summer to tunnel get destroyed by a woodpecker in 3 mornings of hammering. Take away the meal, and you take away the bird. Now, I have given you the whole working method, and if you stopped right here, you would have everything you need to protect your home for $1 or $2. But I promised you a secret at the start. The real one, the plain people kept using while the rest of the world forgot it and started buying cans. And this is the part I most want you to remember, because it is the cleverest of all, and it costs you nothing but a little wood and twine. It is the trap, but not the kind you buy. The kind that works with the bee's own nature against her, and the reason it works was buried in old observation long before anybody sold a plastic one for $25. Here's the thing about a carpenter bee that you can use. She is lazy in one very particular way. Not lazy in her digging, no, she will work for weeks. But she would always rather move into a hole that is already started than start her own from scratch. Drilling that first inch is the hardest work she does. So if she comes flying along your wall in spring and finds a hole already bored, the right size, in the right kind of wood, in a shaded spot, she will choose that over making her own nearly every time. It is in her bones. The path of least labor. So my grandfather and his father before him would give her one on purpose, in the wrong place. A place where she could do no harm and where they wanted her. You take a block of soft, untreated wood, pine works fine, a scrap 4x4, a chunk of an old beam, anything soft and bare, a few inches thick, and into the bottom face of it, the underside, you drill holes, 1/2 inch across. That size matters 1/2 inch, because that is the size she likes. the size she would make herself. You drill them at a slight upward angle, going up into the block, and then you drill a hole straight up through the top and run a tunnel so the angled holes meet a chamber, or simpler, you just bore the angled holes a few inches deep. You hang that block up high under an eave on the sunny side of a shed, away from your good wood. Bare, unpainted, tempting. She finds it. She reads it as a perfect, already started home, less work than your porch, and she moves in. She lays her young in your block instead of your house. And here is the old part, the clever part. Underneath that block, you hang a glass jar or a clear bottle fixed right under a hole that you have bored all the way through the block. Because a carpenter bee, when she is done or when she is confused inside that block, moves toward the light. She always goes to the light. So when she drops out the bottom of that tunnel into the jar, looking for the brightness below, she cannot find her way back up into the dark hole, and she stays in the jar. That is the whole secret of every fancy trap on the store shelf today. A bare wood block with angled holes and a clear jar below that uses her pull toward light against her. They did not invent it. They put a price tag on it. The plain people were hanging these on the barn long before the patent, and the reason it works is not magic and not chemistry. It is simply knowing the animal. She prefers the easy hole. She moves toward the light. Give her both in the wrong place and she traps herself. Hang one of these near each corner of your house in early spring, before the bees are flying, when they are first coming out looking for a place to nest. Bare wood, sunny wall, up high. They will choose the trap over your home, and you can lift the jar and see exactly how many you spared your porch. There is a deep satisfaction in that jar. My grandfather would hold it up to the light on a spring evening and just nod, the way a man does when the old way has done its quiet work again. And think about what that means for your money. The pest fellow wants $150 to come treat your house, and he will want to come back. The store wants $20 for a trap and another $20 for a can of spray and more next year. The plain way costs you a scrap of pine, a few drilled holes, an old jar, a couple dollars of boric acid powder, and a little almond extract from the baking shelf. That is the whole arsenal. And it does not wear out, it does not expire on a shelf, and nobody owns the idea but you, now that you know it. That is what gets me, if I am honest. Not the bees. The bees are just doing what the good Lord made them to do, and there is no anger in me toward a creature digging a home for her young. What gets me is how much was sold to good people who already had everything they needed in the kitchen and the woodpile. An entire industry built on the hope that you never find out how simple it always was. They are not telling you a secret. They are selling you back the thing your great-grandmother knew for free. We never lost it because we never had a store to lose it to. When you live plain, you keep the knowledge, because the knowledge is the tool. You cannot run to town for every little thing, so you remember. You watch the bee. You learn she fears almond and citrus, that boric dust rides home on her own legs, that she will take the easy hole every time, that she always swims toward the light, and you build your defense out of those small true facts in a scrap of pine. That is not folklore. That is just paying attention, handed down, until the universities write it up and act surprised. So let me put the whole thing back in your hands, plain and in order, so you have it for good. Know your enemy. The loud bee at your face is the harmless male, all bluff, no sting. The quiet one around back is the female doing the damage. Do not waste yourself on the decoy. Find every hole on a cool morning, mark the ones with fresh sawdust as active, and treat them all, active and old alike, because the old ones carry the scent that calls the new. Puff boric acid up into the tunnels at dusk. Let the bee carry it home to her young over a week, and do not seal a thing until she has. Turn the bees away from your good wood with almond extract and citrus oil wiped or sprayed on the shaded undersides, reapplying through the spring, and paint what you can, because a solid coat of paint is the best long defense there is. Foul the old scent with a dab of citrus, then pack each hole tight with steel wool and cap it with caulk in that order, so nothing chews back through. And hang your homemade trap, a bare pine block with half-inch holes, bored at an angle, and a clear jar below, on the sunny corners before they fly, and let her lazy nature and her love of the light do the rest. That is it. That is the whole of it. A weekend of work, a couple of dollars, and your porch and your barn and your railings are yours again, the way they should be. Without a single visit from a man with a clipboard and a bill, you did not just save money today. You took back something that was quietly carried off, a piece by piece, sold back to you in cans and contracts when it was always yours to begin with. The plain people never handed it over because we never had anyone to hand it to. Now you have it too, and you can hand it to your own children, and they will not have to buy it back. That is who you are if you watch this far. You are not the kind to keep paying for what nature and the old ways already give for free. You are the kind who would rather know than be sold to, and that is a good thing to be. My grandfather would have liked you, so do this for me. Go back up to the comment box and tell me your state, just the state, the way I asked at the start, because I truly want to see this map fill in and find out how far north these bees have spread. And while you are there, tell me one more thing. Tell me how many holes you found when you walked your house. I want to know who is dealing with 1 and who is dealing with 50, because I read these and I answer what I can. Do not just think it, type it. It only helps the next person who finds this looking for the same answers. And if you would, stay with us. This is not a channel so much as a table of folks remembering the practical things the world got talked out of. The simple, cheap, plain ways that always worked. Subscribe and pull up a chair, because there is more of this to pass down. Next time, I am going to show you the one thing my grandmother kept on the windowsill that no ant would cross. Not one, all summer long, and why it works on a part of the ant nobody ever thinks about. It costs less than this did. And like everything else we keep, it was never really lost. Just forgotten by the people who wanted you to forget. I will see you there.